brain slews, slick with ectoplasmic juice. Ecstatic energy, a fire that fuels our memory. With genealogy, with spiritual topography. Questions for your answers, we are data necromancers. Face of fire, break the glass.
Dude, you come all the way to my house to infect me with these fucking hits, these number one hits.
Wait, who sings that one? As song as I point to myself, it helps me to. I forget. Is it Chevelle? It's not Chevelle.
No, it's not Chevelle, but it's a Chevelle adjacent band. Okay, what are the lyrics? I could Google them.
In case of fire, break the glass and
Taproot.
Taproot. Interesting. What a weird band name. Taproot. Are carrots taproots?
Yeah.
Parsnips?
I desperately wish I had another cup of coffee.
Go for it.
I'm not gonna spend time making it right now. Oh, I'm going. All right, we're going.
We're going now. Bye-bye then.
Welcome to episode 69.
69. It's 44, I believe.
43? 44.
Last week we redid 43, which we did the previous week as well.
But it was like a low bunghole energy. Sorry. You need water too. You need coffee. We need water. We need a water boy.
Low slung bunghole.
Low slow bunghole. Step into my bunghole.
Step into my bunghole. Do you want water?
Yes. I would prefer to have scotch. Glass.
What's your scotch?
I went to this Lefroy, really fancy Lefroy, I don't even know what you would call it, tasting party, whatever.
Yeah.
And they had, I wonder if I can find it. Lefroy, there's variations. Shop whiskeys. Oh yeah, let me type in my birthday because that's helpful.
Lefroy is a peaty, a very peaty scotch.
Come on, man.
And once upon a time, I knew the difference of the Highlands and the what
lore. Is it? Lefroy lore.
I live for lore.
Lore.
I live
that
for
one
lore.
was like swing. Swing. Swing-a-ling.
Feed me some Lefroy lore.
I also love Japanese malted whiskeys.
I don't think I've had them.
Oh, they're so good.
Wasn't that the specialité of the maison in what you call it? Water trade?
Yep.
I like, when I was a scotch drinker, I like to drink Glenlivet 12 year, the Glenlivet 12 year. There's so many specific things about scotch that you have to remember when you're speaking about it, and like when you're talking to people about it. It's like a specific cultural point. It's interesting to delve into those little worlds because some people are hobbyists about scotch.
Jake Smith, if you can get your hands on a bottle of Nikka Coffee Malt.
Nikka Coffee Malt.
Nikka coffee, not the drink, but the Scotsman who invented, or no.
Huh?
I'm confusing them. A Scotsman distilled it, but he used a coffee still. Coffey.
C-O-F-F-E-Y.
That scotch to me is like you could drink it hot and from a old Pepsi can, and it
Red
would be
hot Texas style
tasty
ginger
as
ale.
balls. That's one of my favorites. I'm salivating.
So in November we'll be drinking scotch.
Yes. In November it shall rain whiskey.
Come November
gin
we'll
and
have a Lydia
mezcal.
Bay.
She will sit here and I will gaze upon her sweet face.
Her potato nature.
She will be a potato. Dude, newborns are the best. They're just sleepy and small.
I can't wait.
They're sleepy and small and
But
hungry.
I will wait. So, dude.
Yeah, dude.
I wanted to, like, hit you with a dose of knowledge.
Dude, I am here to guzzle. I'm here to guzzle the knowledge.
So, the book I've been reading by Umberto Eco is called Foucault's Pendulum. And the subject matter is, like...
Right up my alley.
Right up my alley, because they delve into all these, they call them the diabolicals. They're sort of like the occult fringe, like all of the mystery that surrounds the legends of the Rosicrucians, the Knights Templar, like
the badasses.
pretty much like, you know, like the underground tunnels of Paris, and like why the world is covered in pyramids, and just like all the cool stuff that we want to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, swing.
So the main protagonist of the book is named Casaubon, and he in the beginning of the book was doing his thesis on the Knights Templar. So he relayed all these stories. He's talking to other people about the Knights Templar.
So in the book, he's writing a paper about these things. Okay.
It seems like the narrative itself is a vehicle to just vomit all of this historical information about these different groups.
Right. It's somebody writing a book about somebody writing a book.
Yeah,
just so you can
but
get
so many different books, and it's all sort of the same thread of the occult, which I love. So the other day I saw on the back of someone's car a white flag with a red cross in the middle. And I was like, Knights Templar, the Knights Templar. And I saw another reference to them somewhere else in the world, and I was like, it's happening. Everything is connected. So last night, I'm thinking about this flag. I'm like, I need to look up what this actually means. So I looked up the white background with the red cross, and here's what it's looking like in my notebook.
Can you see it? It's very small.
So this is St. George's cross. St. George
also makes excellent gin, ladies and gentlemen.
St. George was considered the military saint. He was the saint that protected you when you went on the Crusades.
And failed miserably.
So the Knights Templar wore this cross, and so did all of the Crusaders. But the Knights Templar were like the main Crusader babes. But interestingly, they historically are considered like the world's first multinational corporation, because they had lines of credit all over Christendom. Like they were like funding projects, and like the Crusaders, 90% of the Knights Templar were non-combatant. Oh. So they weren't even...
They're just like they weren't even first
all
credit card
soldiers. They were like bankers. Isn't that wild? But it goes up against sort of... so I'm trying to figure out where to take this, because there's so much to say. In the ancient world, there was the Romans eventually. Right. And then when they sort of toppled because they got too big, because of... the Goths, the Visigoths, the Ostrogoths, the Vandals, all the barbarians sort of pecking at them from every side. They also relied too heavily on slave labor. They couldn't sustain their military might because they ran out of money. Because if you think about all the things that they did to lay siege all around the Roman Empire, it cost so much money to do. Right. Like there was that one siege where they had to... build a mountain so that they could go over a wall to like lay siege to this city. And when they finally got in there, everyone had suicided. They were like, we're not going to be taken by the Romans. I saw that on...
What was that called? Because that sounds tight.
I saw that on whatever that show was.
Did they still get what they wanted? Or did they want to just have them all alive?
Well, the Romans relied on slaves from all the lands that they subjected. Okay. So, I guess
they were like, fuck you.
Fuck you, you're not gonna enslave us. So, okay, there's so much I want to say. Okay, so the fall of Rome was 476. Some would say AD. We're saying CE for Common Era because it's after the year 0. And a lot of people believe the years that followed were kind of empty and dark and inconsequential as far as history is concerned, but it was actually a really complex time in history where the Islamic Golden Age took place. So like Islam is not that old of a religion if you're considering.
We were talking about that the other day.
Like Judaism or Christianity is young compared to Judaism as well. But so, okay. Rome fell in 500 CE. And then Muhammad, the prophet, the creator of Islam, died in 632. So just 130 years after the fall of Rome. And his death was what sort of hurled all of the other people out into the world in their jihad, because jihad is one of the pillars, the 5 pillars of Islam. And there's internal jihad where you have to physically and emotionally struggle against your base impulses, but there's also outward jihad where you practice debate and discussion, but then there's also the jihad of the sword. So after the establishment of Islam, after Muhammad passed away, they, shot out into the world and just took over everything. And that was their golden age. So that was when the caliph, who's like the supreme leader of the Islamic Empire, built the House of Wisdom in Baghdad. And so Arab scholars started translating books from Greece. Not books, because they didn't have books yet.
Tomes? Scrolls?
I guess they were scrolls.
Yeah.
So they started translating everything into Arabic from India, from Persia, from Greece. So all the ancient wisdom that we thought was lost during the European Dark Ages was preserved in the Arab world. And they made advances in medicine and science and astronomy. So referring to it as the Middle Ages, sort of like between the fall of Rome and the Renaissance in the 14th century, is kind of...
so how many years was that?
That was, let's see, 5,
6, 7, 8. So 5 to 14?
9, 10, 11, 12. What's that, 900 years?
It's so hard when we talk like this because it's hard to comprehend 900
I know,
years.
if I had a whiteboard, I would write it all down. So all that is to say that the Middle Ages, we should probably refer to them as the medieval period, because it was sort of a rich and cultured and vibrant and complex period, and it wasn't just, people farming dirt, even though there were a lot of dirt farmers.
Did you eat dirt? Dirt brownies?
I eat dirt all the time, every day. God made dirt, and dirt don't hurt.
Dirt don't hurt.
So I'm trying to find a line that makes sense. So when Rome fell, there was really no government that was uniting
Hell yeah.
all of the crazy, varied groups in Europe.
This like massive, deflated.
It just was impotent. It had extended so far, it could no longer sustain even though they were incredible road builders and they had like a swift and prepared military, all of that crumbled. Partially due to political unrest, and I guess because they had a bunch of lead in their aqueducts and they all went fucking nuts.
The Romans did?
The Romans.
Oh.
So Christianity is taking hold. And now that Rome's not in charge anymore, it's time for the Catholic Church to be in charge. So the Catholic Church...
what was the religion of... Or was it just...
Roman religion was polytheistic. So if you think about like... all the Greek gods.
Yeah.
There's Roman
Okay,
versions
so that
of
was
each one.
still hanging on.
Yes.
Okay.
And so, like, the allegiance to Rome was picked apart by the allegiance to the one God. It became more important to be a Christian. And then in year 400 or so, Diocletian,
that was the beginning of the end,
made it legal to be Christian. So after that, a lot of people started to become Christian. And so the Catholic Church basically had to become the government, and everyone was expected to tithe 10% of their income to the church.
God, this shit's been happening for a long time, huh?
It's all a cycle. Yeah. It's all a cycle. So the church is collecting everyone's taxes, and they're largely untaxed.
Of course.
They're largely exempt because they're sort of in the good graces of the kings and everything that's in their Holy Roman Empire, they started calling it. So, interestingly enough, there was a council. The first ecumenical council of the Catholic Church was to establish like unified doctrine across the Christendom, like all of Christianity, and it was in 325, the Council of Nicaea, and that was where they determined Jesus, the Son of God, was begotten, not made, which is a really important part of the Catholic Church, and they still say it to this day.
Can you break that down for me?
So the argument was, this dude named Arius was saying, like, Jesus was created. We're not sure what substance he was created out of, but he has a beginning. And he didn't exist before this one beginning when he was created. But the Catholic Church holds that that's heresy, because God, the Father, and God the Son, Jesus, are of the same substance. So they are both...
God, so they were nitpicking something weird.
Oh.
Something that India wasn't doing with Buddha. They were, Buddha was just a person who attained...
The Catholic Church went through a series of these ecumenical councils where they further refined and specified what the, like,
down to the
doctrine
molecule.
Was.
Okay.
And they would... what is it called when you expel someone? Banish, I think. Yeah, banish people who didn't agree with whatever they all agreed upon. But a cool thing about the Council of Nicaea, the dude that we based the Santa Claus legend on was present at the council. His name is Nicholas of Myra, and he eventually was canonized as a saint. Listen to the stories. Okay, Nicholas of Myra was a Greek bishop who had this knack for secret gift giving. So there's this story where he rescued 3 girls from being forced into prostitution. By one night he left a bag of gold on their windowsill secretly, and then the next night he did it again, and then the next night he did it again, paying the dowry for them so that
he could put them into sex slavery.
Well, no, he was secret. He never showed himself. He just like saved them, and that was it. He dipped out. There was another tale of Nicholas of Myra, Santa Claus. He resurrected 3 children, and this is how bad the world used to be. Like, this gives us really good perspective on how good we have it.
So disgusting.
Resurrected 3 children who had been killed and pickled in brine to be sold as pigs during a famine by a butcher. So that's one of Santa Claus's original legends.
You heard it first here at
So he's the
MAWPOD.
patron saint of children, and he also
reanimated the pickled dead. So I now like that we worship him in this highly commercialized...
It's wild. And you know the date for Christmas? This is a weird Christmas tangent. I don't know why, but it's happening. The date for Christmas was based on, like, it was around the winter solstice.
Children were pickled.
But it happened because in the year 800, the Pope at the time, I forget if it was like Boniface or Pius or whatever his fucking name was.
We could have a list of popes behind us.
I was also looking at a flowchart of Protestant Reformation, but I'll get into that later.
Put a pin in Protestant.
So, fuck, what were they? Oh,
the date
so year 800, December 25th, was the day that Charlemagne was crowned the first emperor of the Roman Empire in 300 years. So after the fall of Rome, he was the first one who was crowned by the Pope to be the Holy Roman Emperor. So that's why we celebrate Christmas on December 25th. Because it's close to the winter solstice, which is usually the 21st, but that's pagan. So the 25th is like solidifying Christianity's hold on the world. Woo!
Could you imagine being the first Roman Empire after 300 years?
Dude, if you look at pictures of Charlemagne, like paintings of him, it's nuts. Like the opulence that such a small segment of society lived in, because everything was feudalism, so land was owned by the king, and the king would give tracts of land called fiefs out to noblemen or bishops, and then they would
what did you say he looked like?
Charlemagne? Oh, just like super opulent and like decadent and luxurious.
He's holding that Chartreusian goblet nugget. The big ball with the cross on top of it.
Is it the Holy Grail?
This thing.
Oh, is that supposed to be the world? Like a globe?
Maybe.
It's probably a common symbol in Christian art that I don't recognize. So, the medieval period was so fascinating to me because all the common people were basically just serfs who lived on land, but only because they worked the land. And everything was owned by the church, the king, noblemen. So there was no opportunity for upward mobility, you know? Like people couldn't just go to school. They couldn't just like get a different job.
No.
You had to do whatever you were born doing.
Yes.
And I guess that's a gratitude point for me, for us, especially as women, because if we were born back then. But I also wanted to say, like, the Black Plague took place in the 14th century,
and
right?
that was started by mites on rats.
Fleas. Infected fleas.
Yeah. How did the fleas get infected?
And this is wild, too, because I'm going to Sicily in a few weeks. So the Black Plague started in Europe when 12 ships from the Black Sea docked at the Sicilian port of Messina. All the sailors on board were dead and covered in black boils and oozing blood and pus.
And they didn't light it on fire and be like, no, don't touch anything.
I'm sure they were coming from the spice region. And so these spice ships, laden with very valuable materials.
Oh, they had to go on and get them anyways. Well, that was when our immune systems were still very...
Well, that was when soap had been invented, but it wasn't, like, used.
You're probably considered a square if you use soap.
And, like, those plague doctor masks, like the long bird beak things, they didn't know. They thought that it was like a miasma, like an evil cloud that floated. And there's also ancient alien theorists who think it was caused by alien visitors who like expelled the miasma from their ships. Like a big fart cloud.
My dad got one of those masks during COVID.
Nice.
He thought it was so funny.
Oh, it's funny.
I have a picture of him wearing it at a Chinese restaurant that we went to.
Oh, wow. What a guy.
I know.
It sounds like something my dad would do so hard.
Yes.
So I have like notes about here. So I gave you the good Santa Claus stuff. What did you...
dude, that really kind of rocked my shit because it's not ever... Growing up, Christmas was not a fun time. So I just when I have kids, I celebrate it, but I'm like, oh, well, let's do the pagan thing. But like learning that, you're like, oh, okay.
I mean, there's so many figures in Christianity and Islam and Judaism who were incredible, like archetypes for what we want to be as humans, like the saints basically. But they're tied
Saints
up with
were the
this,
original influencers.
Yeah, they're tied up with this institution that's fraught because it deals with money.
Right.
Anything money touches, it's like, this is poison now. Like, I don't want to be a part of this. Yeah. It's about amassing wealth and like displaying your opulent wealth. And that was why Martin Luther was like, fuck this noise. I'm going to publish my 95 Theses and we're going to change this whole fucking game.
I stood next to his pulpit.
Whoa.
Yeah. I got crazy vibes from that. It was like something I was brought to. I wasn't going to this Martin Luther exhibit out of my own.
Where was that?
I believe it was at the Minneapolis Institute of Art. They did a big Martin Luther.
Like a traveling show, basically. That's nuts.
His artifacts, yeah.
He emphasized, so the Catholic Church, on top of taxing everybody and calling it tithes, they were letting rich people get out of purgatory, basically.
Of course.
They were like, if you pay these things, Martin Luther referred to them as indulgences. If you pay, we'll give you extra prayers. And, maybe your Aunt Betty, who passed away the other day, she's in purgatory. We'll pray and we'll get her soul to heaven. Can you imagine thinking that you can buy your way into heaven?
Yeah. I think, don't people still do that?
But there's so much scriptural evidence that they like the rich man does not get into heaven.
Yeah,
bro.
no, it kind of goes against like the very foundational.
But that's why Martin Luther was against the papacy, anti-papist. Did not want the Pope. Did not want.
He's like, fuck this noise.
Yeah, he was like, okay, what about the Bible? What if we read that? And I have access to God. Because at that point,
it had become this 3D printed.
It had totally gone off the rails. And him and all his boys decided to bring it back. They believed in faith alone, not faith and good works, which is what Catholics believe.
Full Metal says that was pre-Bible translation. He translated it from Greek versus the Latin that the church had. I'm sure there was so much power in translation, right? You're like, no, it's
absolutely. And then there was the extra
right here.
There was the extra separation between, in Catholicism, the people couldn't read the Bible themselves.
Right.
It was in the control of the papacy, of all the priests, of all the bishops, of all of those motherfuckers who...
They're like, tell us what it says,
So
Father.
He was also against confession to a priest. It's like, you have no business between me and God. I'm going to talk to God directly. Thanks, though.
I'm glad that there was somebody who was like, oh, fuck the middleman. Like, what do you... That's inherently evil.
Yeah, it's crazy to think. I had another cool note from the fall of Rome. So all the different reasons that Rome fell, there was kind of a really specific instance where the Goths, they were kind of chill with Rome, and Rome was like, okay, yeah, you can kind of get protection from the Huns. The Huns were these insane, battle-driven, horse-mounted, like berserker motherfuckers that would just like ride in and slaughter everyone indiscriminately.
So like, those people were an unfathomable type of ruthless. Yeah,
like the women, children.
Yeah, everybody
is fair game. So the Goths, seeking protection from the Huns, the Romans kind of let them within the safety of their borders, but they treated them with severe cruelty. Like
Who let them in?
The Romans.
Okay. Why?
So they would have more subjects, and so that they could use their slave labor to maintain their government and processes and things.
They treated them with cruelty?
The cruelty they treated them with, they forced them to sell their children into slavery. No, the Goths. The Romans forced the Goths, who they were offering protection to from the Huns, to sell their children into slavery in exchange for dog meat to eat. So the Goths never forgot that. and
good.
They amassed power, and they were
in it for the long game.
They fucked Rome up.
Did they really?
Relentlessly.
Come on, tell me more.
That was like a huge linchpin in the fall of Rome.
Oh.
The Goths, like, remembering how they were treated inside Rome's protection, and then, you know, their tale of vengeance. King Alaric the First, I think, fucked up Rome. But the Huns are, like, the scariest people in history, I feel like worse than the Mongols, because nobody really knows where the Huns come from or where they came from. They were just, like, ruthless murderers.
They came from all over, probably.
Well, I guess they think that it's, like, Kazakhstan or, like, sort of Western Asia area. Terrain. Same place where apples come from, probably.
They're linked to the steppe people, but it still remains uncertain. Scholars generally agree that they originated in Central Asia, but disagree on specifics of their origin. There's like a crazy bruise-looking map.
Is there a painting of Attila the Hun?
Attila the Hun.
Attila the Hun. It's so cool to think about all these, like, bombastic personalities in history, like Genghis Khan and all of his progeny, Attila the Hun, Charlemagne. I mean, even St. Francis of Assisi, like, to have done so much, made such an impact in the world that we still remember their names to this day.
Have they found the lost tomb of Attila the Hun?
Ooh.
Could that be our MAWPOD on tour? We're
looking for the lost tomb of Attila the Hun.
We go pod in front of the tomb that is suspected to be Attila the Hun.
Yes, hell yes.
And then we do a seance.
I don't want to talk to him.
No, I don't want to talk to him either.
He's probably
like, hey guys, hey, no one talks to me.
Can anybody, like, get me out of here?
Yeah.
He's, like, trapped because of all of the damage he did. So the Middle Ages were...
You dropped some serious knowledge bombs on me.
Not just the period of time between the fall of Rome and the Renaissance, but it was a time of much upheaval and change and development.
You could see, like, that sounds like a useless degree unless you became a teacher or you're just being paid to be a scholar, but it sounds so fucking interesting.
It's my shit, yeah.
Just go fucking study it hardcore. You gonna go pee on my foot? Oh
my god, I brought this book. So this was that class I was talking about with my professor who was visiting from Notre Dame. This is about the freaky deaky Christian people during that time.
My people.
Your people.
The book is called, what's it called?
It's called Late Medieval Mysticism. It's a compilation of different stuff about different Christian mystics. And these are the people who, you know, before the invention of the printing press, they were sitting in their monasteries making illuminated manuscripts, which were like copies of really important books. And the main book they were making copies of was the Bible and like different prayer pamphlets and things like that. But they had visions and like interactions with divine presence, and I find it very interesting to read them. Don't lick, babe. No licky.
Yeah, it's a disgusting sound when you're trying to talk. Just wet flesh on flesh. It's like, come on, yo. I keep thinking about pickled children. You know, I stopped. This is what would happen when I would smoke weed.
Oh.
And I didn't do it very often. Like, it was fun in games when you're watching AFV pissing yourself. Like, you're unearthing the good episodes.
America's Funniest Home Videos. Got it.
And you're eating goodies, or me and Lucas are, you know, just joke after joke after joke. Just like going ham. I have notes from when we would get high in winter in Baltimore because there was nothing else to do. But then it was time to go to bed, which is never a good time for me.
Aww.
And I could like psychically tap into I was like, I wonder who has died the most painful death in the history of humanity. And I would like chase that thread and think of like Vlad the Impaler, like all these, the Huns, like these people who just bathed in blood and thought it was the greatest thing.
They were like supreme horse people, so they were really good at moving around on horses and like lassoing things. So they would like ride into the battlefield on their horses and then lasso people and then drag them behind them on their horses until they died.
Yeah, and that's where I would go, like often when I was high.
There is so much pain in the world, like history of pain, like memories of pain, that I have no interest in visiting.
Yeah, why was I slated to tap that fucking metaphysical electricity barb?
Well, there's something odd about you where you don't fear pain or other people's pain, because like you express this desire to like work with drug addict, homeless people, and that is just a tangled up hurricane of pain, in my opinion, that you want to like thrust your consciousness toward. Yeah. So I don't know what it is about you, but you're fascinated, you're drawn in by pain.
And then once I tapped the dead people coming to my door, I could no longer alter my consciousness. Like I have no interest in doing that anymore, because it's the last time I got high.
You mean with weed?
Anything, any substance.
You don't wish to do psychedelics anymore?
No, because it's like they're already knocking on my door when I'm stone cold sober, drinking coffee or eating a cheeseburger, that the second that you unwind the sobriety, fucking Armageddon. Which I've read that people who work at shamans,
yeah,
that's what I'm talking about, not the new wave of American scientists doing it, but I'm so glad that they are. But they're like, yeah, no, we don't fucking drink. What's wrong with you? Because of that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh man, I really, really like MDMA. Guess I'm not doing that anymore. You know, it's just like
too dangerous for your psyche.
Yeah, it's interesting. But also I bet you there's a place like in ayahuasca rituals, the shaman would do ayahuasca with you to tap into that. I would have to find somebody to. There's no way I'm going about that alone.
Yeah, it seems really scary.
Sabina Sabe, like the older woman in the hills of Mexico, in which Timothy Leary went and heard about psilocybin, went and did mushrooms. And had that experience and brought the psychedelic wave to America. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I want somebody like that to like teach me.
Mm-hmm. Too bad you can't get Ram Dass.
I had a profound connection with him. I had a vision about him 3 days before he died.
Aww.
Yeah, I don't know what that is or because he was a Harvard professor. He was living that life. There was nothing really about him that, spoke to me until he figured out how to channel, that awesome information and bring it into a Western scope, which was so hard. Because that's what we need. Okay, we're like, cool, yeah, that sounds easy if you're just trying to get your bowl of rice every day. But what happens when you add car payments and houses and mortgages and kids and like all that other stuff? How do you still maintain that path?
You gotta play the game.
Gotta play the game.
I think the game is fun for the most part. But I don't have to deal with a lot of painful things.
Yeah.
When I get high,
Well, you and Aaron like smoke before you prep. It elevates your focus and your drive.
Yeah, it somehow like drives me further into my body instead of being trapped in my mind.
Opposite for me, man.
Yeah. It like I'll get high and I'll be like, oh, suddenly I feel very strong.
That is so funny. For me, it was always like I had a bruise right here and you're like, ah!
Oh,
like it made everything hurt more. I never understood how it was to alleviate pain, because for me it would just
that's crazy
radiate. Or if like my throat was kind of sore. Suddenly it became like this unbearable.
That's nuts.
So maybe I got a weird pain beacon in my
Your
head.
shit's upside down.
Fucking upside. It's inside out. It's fucked.
Your shit is inside out. And it probably has something to do with your inability to regulate temperature as well.
Maybe, yeah.
It's all connected.
That's a good
literally
surmisation.
Who knows? I'm a doctor all of a sudden.
She's a doctor. Well, we've got a few more minutes left. Man, I just want to go read more about the fucking
Saint Nick.
No, just about all of it. It's such a massive timeline involving so many cultures that it would be hard to choose. Although the House of Wisdom kind of gongs my bell a little bit.
Definitely. And paper came from China via the route of the Silk Road in the 8th century. So nobody was making books in Western Asia or Western Asia, Eastern Europe, regular Europe. Nobody was making books until they got paper from China. But then once they got their hands on paper, these Arab scholars started to translate all the Greek and Indian and Persian writings from the ancient world. And
wasn't China really guarded about their own history?
Or is
that just Japan?
I need to like delve into China. I need
Japan.
to like
I don't remember.
Really do a deep dive into Chinese history because it is vast. So vast. Like Europe is so small and has so many different bodies within it.
And China is so big.
China is so big. And so the Rubbish Cook we just did, talking about the House of Wisdom and how the Mongolian horde, when they sacked Baghdad in 1258, they threw all of those books into the Tigris River.
Did you find some good Baghdad B-roll? Did you find good B-roll on the...
The only thing I've used that website for so far is a wall of fire, but it was great.
They have all sorts of stuff too if you dig in. It's like,
and they have sound effects too.
Sound effects, fonts.
So I got some crackly fire sound effects and like a whoosh, like flame taking.
Yeah, I've always secretly wanted you to employ more of a history lesson.
Ooh, yeah.
But I do know, and there's the like sorting through the archival footage and stuff, and kind of making more voiceover-y lesson stuff. It's a lot more work, but I don't know. I think it would be...
No, that'd be great.
It'd be more fun. A Doodle sent me some archival footage, and I was like, oh, I have not gone down this road for this reason.
Archival motorcycle stuff?
No, it was about a city, but she had like... There's a bunch of websites out there where they have, fucking old school shit that's really fun to put in.
That's what Nick would use to make his videos.
Yeah,
because it was free.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff out there.
Wait, it's already been an hour?
56 minutes, baby.
What the French toast? I feel like I was just talking about Attila the Hun the whole time.
Yeah, but I fucking dig that. And also I slept like shit last night, so I'm here to listen. I'm like, yeah.
It's just, I just feel like so good thinking about the Black Plague in the 14th century.
Soundbite.
Because our ancestors survived it.
What? It would be so cool.
It killed 30% of the population of Europe.
So what year was that?
1347.
Okay, I want to... I've got to... Oh, it doesn't go back that far. I want to... It would be cool if you and I could pinpoint within like a couple hundred years the person who fucking made it out or whatever.
That'd be insane. I mean, but the way records were kept back then, they're all destroyed now.
What a bummer.
But this other book I read called the Doomsday Book went into great detail about the entry of the Black Plague into England and the year that it happened.
I can't imagine like a ship just showing up and you're like, hey, you guys gonna tie? Oh, nothing? What the fuck? You go up and they're just like...
So most of them were dead. There was still somebody piloting the ship.
Oh, God.
But I'm sure they had like, buboes under their arms and they're like, fucking kill me!
Or did they live because they had made it? You know, I don't know what the Black Plague, like, you know, okay, if
life
you
cycle
have,
of the
if you have
germ.
sores for 6 days, okay, it's gonna suck.
The
but
Doomsday
you're most
Book
likely
goes deep into
Does
that.
it really?
So yeah, the lady Kivrin, she goes from the future back to 1348, and she's studied the Black Plague. So she's like lancing buboes, washing it with wine, sacramental wine, which is all they have back then. They don't have any kind of antiseptics.
You have nothing. You have nothing.
You have nothing.
And
because you don't even
died.
know how dirty you are. You're just always caked in dirt. And then when you take a bath, the dirtiest person gets in the bath first, and then everybody else washes after that. So you're never, ever clean. Never clean. That's why everybody had fleas. And the fleas also transmitted the plague to cows, chickens, goats. It's crazy to think that it affected humans so much, but it also
just
destroyed all of their food and sheep. So there was a wool shortage. Like,
did she talk about the origin of it? Because it's like, where did that flea come from, and where it was just chilling and being fine, or had it just not made news over?
Well, since it had come from that ship that landed in Sicily at the port of Messina.
Are you gonna go to that port? How sick would that
I fucking
be?
hope I'm gonna be like, this is where the plague took root.
And you're standing there with your glass of wine and your fucking baguette with charcuterie.
Mount Etna's going off. It's like volcanic shit, and I'm also like touching the place where the plague came in. But everything came from China way, you know? So I need to like study Chinese history and see what the plague was like for them, because that's the area that it came from.
China arrow plague, because I want to know too.
Yeah, and I'm so storked on Sicily because it's literally in the center of the Mediterranean. So you would go from the Black Sea through the port of Constantinople or like Istanbul, and then down into the Aegean, and then into the Mediterranean. And then Sicily was this incredible port city where everybody stopped, traded. So it's like so many different cultures. I'm dying from thinking about it. I'm so excited. I don't know what's going to happen to me. I hope my cousins can share my enthusiasm.
They won't, I'm sure. They're like, yeah, but we want to go to this purse store. You know, and you're like, but the olives.
I already told Marcy that I'm so excited because of Archimedes. He was Sicilian.
She's like, oh, Megan.
Are we going to Syracuse? Will we see the Archimedean death ray? Please? I want to see the death ray.
You and I wouldn't get anywhere because we'd be too busy fucking freaking the fuck out.
Just like laying hands on things and being like, oh!
Dude, I freaked out at all of just going to all the pyramid sites in Mexico. You're just like, I can't move. Lucas is like, no. There was a jade jaguar up here. Yeah, it's like, it's palpable too.
This world is a magical world. I love it.
She loves you.
I love it. Let's see. Let me make sure I gave you all the stories I wanted to give you.
Did you give me all the stories?
So all that is to say that the Knights Templar were the Crusaders. The Crusaders came up against the Muslims who were preserving ancient knowledge, and Europe was fucked because of the Black Plague and feudalism and the predominance of the Catholic Church. It's so amazing to just think about our ancestors surviving this literal shit show.
They're all just coming into each other until we came out.
That's right. So the Knights Templar have like, they were sort of there was a smear campaign put out about them because the king didn't like how much favor they had with the Pope because the Pope was so powerful. So he's like, fuck these Knights Templar. They can do whatever they want. They have so much money. That should be my money. I'm going to put out a smear campaign. So he smeared them and then captured a ton of them and forced them into confessing like these evil, diabolical things. And one of the things was kissing the rear end on the base of the spine where the Kundalini spirit is supposed to come out from. So he accused them of basically
being butt kissers?
Homosexuals, which is not hard to fathom because if you're a monk soldier, you're always with dudes, and you're always with dudes, and you're always with dudes. So I don't know, but yeah, he had them like hanged and burned at the stake and stuff
because they were kissing little.
Well, that was part of the smear campaign.
They were false confessions
because they had so much money and they were in control and they were pretty much above the law. They were the law.
So they didn't really have a plan in case the king came after them.
Well, it's interesting you use the word plan because that's what the book I'm reading is all about. Their plan and uncovering their plan.
To fuck the king up or to fuck anybody
basically
who crosses
to get
them?
Vengeance.
Oh.
And it might be the super long game.
You're not done with the book.
No.
Oh shit. Oh shit.
I don't know what's gonna happen. In the book there's like this computer that they're putting all of these bits and points and stuff into, so I don't know what's gonna happen.
I can't wait to hear more about it.
Well, thanks for letting me come on here and spit hot fire about the medieval period of Europe and stuff like that.
Lots of interesting stuff going on back then.
Always.
Seems way more fascinating than what's happening now.
Negative. I don't believe that. I think that we just don't know about it.
Sure. It just feels like a plateau of complacency, but also
the nature of secret societies is to go unnoticed and to carry out their plan from shadow.
Correct. But also at the same time, you know, what soap was to them back then, what are we doing now that people are like, can you fucking believe it? They didn't know they were telepathic and could, you know.
Industrial farming complex.
Yeah, something like.
All of the garbage that we're amassing about us and filling the ocean with. I think the future will be like, they were choking the earth with plastic all up and down, all over the place.
It is really strange that we just bury it in the ground. You're like, that's it? This seems like a really, 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 really outdated way of dealing with trash.
No shit.
Just to throw it in the ground. You're like, there's nothing?
We can't shoot it into the sun?
That's where my rant about our knowledge of thermodynamics comes in, and we need aliens to come down and expand upon it. Well, we can't do anything because the energy made to create it is stored and it is, you know, and you're like, oh, there's got to be a way around that. We're just
You mean
not there
what,
yet.
like entropy? How will, if we shoot stuff into the sun, we'll lose, what do you mean?
No, like when we create something, we can never extract. It's like harder to break it down.
That's
like
because we are inferior makers compared to the Mother Earth. Mother Earth, all of her shit, there's no waste. Everything gets used. Producers, consumers, and decomposers. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it seems that we just haven't quite fucking figured it out. I watched that Anthony Bourdain documentary called Wasted. Did you notice how much he was talking about suicide in that? And how much he was talking about, I would just fucking hang myself.
Yeah.
Like, it was something he had been thinking about.
He's always been blunt.
He's always been super blunt, and I've seen a shit ton of his stuff, but this was very suicide heavy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And I don't remember what year.
2015? Or when was that from? 2007? Maybe I'm thinking of Chris Cornell.
You are, because we were just...
Rest in peace, King.
Yeah, he died a year after that. He committed suicide a year after that, so that makes sense.
A year after Wasted?
Yeah.
Fuck.
I really want the pork. This is a Minnesota goodbye. Sorry, guys.
What's a Minnesota goodbye?
Or it takes forever.
Oh, I see.
Takes forever to say goodbye.
The opposite of an Irish
down
goodbye.
Here it's called a Mexican goodbye. And I was like,
because
so
Mexican
it's not just in
family and
Minnesota.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
when they showed them panko tempura frying their varietal of pork that they feed their food scraps to, so they turn their food scraps into a feed, and the chef was like, oh, wait a second, this is the first time I'm ever eating pork.
Was it Danny Bowen from Mission Chinese?
Yes. I went to Mission Chinese without knowing it in San Francisco.
Oh, nice.
Because it's a total dive.
I went there too. I got mapo tofu.
And like everybody's annoyed by you that works there, and the bathroom's beyond the kitchen, and it's really fucking cool. That's how I would want to do a restaurant. It's just like a fucking there you go.
Sort of like a speakeasy.
Yeah. We don't feed our animals scraps. We feed them corn and soy, and just how flavorless the animal becomes because of that. And I was like, I'm going to buy a ticket to Japan right now.
Or get a hog and start feeding it your leftovers.
Or just, I'm sure there's also a hog nearby that's fed by. There's a ton of local purveyors of meat at Salt and Thyme. We only buy meat from there because everything else just is a different product.
Yeah. I still crave meat so much, but I don't buy it for myself. I'll eat it out.
I'm gonna tempura fucking fry a pork chop because that shit looks...
Katsu. That's one of the best dishes.
Every time I get katsu, it's like a pounded out thin piece, whereas theirs was like a gigantic fucking chop. That's what I want.
With bulldog sauce.
Oh, come on, lady. Come on.
Should we go to Sautin?
They fucking closed my favorite.
The one on Springdale, though?
No, that's still open.
I don't think they do pork katsu anyway.
Nope, they completely changed their menu.
What?
Yeah, you can still get, like, it's just different.
Toast?
You can still get toast. All right, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks for listening to our maniacal ramblings.
Full Metal says, trash problem is it takes tons less energy to make the bonds. Yeah, that's where we're stuck, in my opinion. I'm like, there's a way around this. That is the ceiling of our knowledge at the point, but it's like there's got to be a fucking way around this.
We have to make it profitable to recycle, to reuse.
I think we have to.
But the products that we're using are the refuse or the products of fossil fuel consumption.
I was like pretty impressed at learning how we generate nuclear power by putting a ton of uranium into a gigantic thing, and
uranium-238,
and then we put rods that cease or control how quickly molecules are running into each other. And I'm like, this seems like the first step of many ways. Just putting a bunch of shit in a vat and then sticking a stick in and out seems just inherently, like, obviously to us it's important and powerful, but I was like, there's gonna be new ways to do this that's like less.
Yeah, fusion versus fission, because the sun runs on fission, and since hydrogen is the most abundant material in the universe, then it makes a lot more sense for that to be the fuel of the sun. But what we do is...
Fusion is the sun. I always confuse them too.
Oh, wait. Fission is where you separate uranium, like a large particle, with a high atomic number.
On Uranus.
Within my anus.
I'd have to take notes to talk about the nuclear stuff because I love watching it. I think it bores Lucas a little bit, but
he's bored with physics?
I don't think so. I was just really into it, and I look over and he's asleep, and I'm like, oh.
I dig physics. Did you know Mr. Burns had a boat that was called Gone Fission? Hey! Mr. Peanut, you've got some splaining to do.
Everybody say goodbye to Mr. Peanut. He is used and abused in this household, and he is Ruby's arch nemesis. This is the premium content that you pay access for.
Look at his little feet.
Crochet job, though, by the way.
Yeah, but what's in the middle?
Cotton.
Cotted?
I don't know, but apparently he doesn't like me. How do I get on your good side, Mr. Peanut?
Feed him peanuts. Oh, wait, that would be cannibalism.
Yeah, Lucas asked Ruby if we should make him into peanut butter.
What did she say?
I can't get rid of this. I don't know why. I think because it's slightly terrifying, so I enjoy it.
It's looking at me right now.
Bye, guys.
Bye.